Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. Hope you are all well and safe. I've been playing around or experimenting with the watercolor brushes in Artstudio Pro and came up with this watercolor of a scene in a back street, I guess, in Morocco. This was a picture taken by my daughter. Usually I work from my own photographs, as you know, but for this one I borrowed one from the lovely Charlotte. So as you can see, I've got lots of lovely watercolor effects, and I use quite a few different techniques. Loving the brushes, they are really nice. So let's just get straight into it and see how I came up with this piece. So, a few people have been asking me to try the watercolor brushes in Artstudio Pro, but before I do that, I've got to try the pencils because I need to get a sketch in, and I'm using the 2B pencil. I have to say, it's really nice. It feels very natural. It's got a where you can tilt the pencil, you get thicknesses of lines. So it doesn't feel like a mechanical pencil. It feels like a proper traditional wooden lead pencil. Really nice to use. So carrying on with this sketch, I've speeded it up a little bit and then I will slow it down. Like for example here, I want to show you that I wanted to resize that boat. I got it a little bit big. And I struggled with this at first because you'll see we've got a set of icons across the top. On one of them is a select tool and we've got a lasso tool there. And I was looking for a transform tool. I thought it would have been there because we've got the move and the crop and everything. And I couldn't find it at all. Eventually, I did find it though by going to the edit menu and selecting transform. You'll see it there in the menu. I was then able to resize that. So that foxed me for a little bit. I suppose I could have read the manual, but you know, that's not what it's all about, is it? It's all about getting in there and getting your hands dirty. So I did sort that out, and once I'd done that, I was happy to carry on sketching until I'd finished the basic layout. Once I got the sketch done, I was straight into getting those watercolor brushes. So I opened up the watercolor. Well, first of all, I created a new layer, and then I opened up the brush palette and selected the watercolor brushes. And I'd gone through a few brushes to find one that I would like. And the one that I thought would be appropriate at this point, you see me scrolling through the brushes now, is the washed watercolor, because that gave a nice big pattern on the sheet, like I am using a really big brush and colouring it in really fast. And I'm wanting to get a wash over the whole of the paper really quickly on this one layer, putting in local colour over the whole of the thing. Now there, I'm noticing when I put the colour over the car, I thought, you know, it's sort of blocking out the pencil work, and I don't really want it to do that. So I go into the blend modes and I try overlay, and that's clearly not the one for me. And there it looks like I chose darken colour, which surprised me because I thought I'd chosen multiply, which I know I do later on. But there we go. I use darken colour to start with, and then I start selecting more colours, and I'm really I love the colours on this photograph. I don't think I need to worry about coming up with my own colour palette for this. I'm really quite happy to just pick the colours, not off the photograph, but pick the colours off the colour wheel that match the colours in the photograph. And you can see me doing that there, getting this first wash in. And I didn't notice straight away, but I'm looking at the sketch of the car, and you'll see that the front wheel is too high. I've got the perspective wrong, which I'll have to adjust a little bit later on. It should be sort of in line with the back bumper, and you can see it's quite a little bit higher, so I don't know what I was thinking there. Anyway, I'm continuing with this wash brush and just applying colour over all of the local areas, and you'll find that I start to use the eraser to lift colour out shortly. Now, I have to say, I want to say at this point that there was a couple of issues with the app, and one of them, I'm not so sure if it was the app or if it was the operating system, the Apple app, the iPad system, but I was trying to choose the eraser and the smudge brush or the smudge tools from the toolbar at the top, and it wouldn't let me. It was like the you know, you could sort of put your finger at the top of the screen and drag down the iPad menu screen, and it was like that was overlaying the tools, and I couldn't select. And the only way I could get it to work again was to actually shut the iPad down, close it down, and reopen it. So I switched it off and switched it on again, and it worked perfectly after that. So there's a bug going off there somewhere. I don't know who's responsible for that, but that was one issue. The second issue I had was I thought that if we've got the three tools across the top, we've got like the dry brush, the wet brush, the smudge brush, there's four actually, and the eraser. And I thought if I chose the eraser, and there is a watercolor eraser brush, I could assign it to that tool. And then likewise, there's a watercolor smudge brush, I could assign it to the smudge tool. And I could assign all the watercolor brushes or a watercolor brush to the wet brush tool, and a pencil to the dry brush tool. Didn't quite work out like that for me, and it kept reverting back to the oil brushes. Every time I switched on the wet brush, it kept reverting back to the oil brushes, and I don't know if that's the bug in the app, or if I was just missing something and hadn't set it up right. Eventually it did seem to start working properly for me, but I did have an issue for quite a while where I was struggling. Okay, I've created a second layer or a third layer. We've got the pencil layer, the original wash layer, and I'm now using that same brush, that wash watercolor brush, to add washes on to put shadows in. But notice I'm using the eraser to remove all of the shapes. So I do this a lot when I'm using watercolor brushes. I like to put on big washes so it looks like I've applied a nice big wash. I don't want to see lots of brush marks with watercolor. And then I use the eraser. See what I mean about this flicking back to the oil paint? Then I had to choose watercolor brush. That was really frustrating at times. But anyway, then I use the eraser to lift out colour, and it did give me a few issues there. So I'm now I'm trying the grainy watercolour brush. I think I want to try something a little bit different just to see what that does, and I'm sort of assessing that, deciding if I like it, and I clearly do, I think. So I'm going to carry on and start adding more colour to that. And as I'm adding the colour, once I've got it on, I am going to use the eraser to lift out the shapes and sort of cut back into it, as it were. There we go. So I'm now going to speed this up a little bit while I add these more shapes and cut them out. I just want to point out here that I'm creating another layer so I can put this shadow over the top of those doors. And this layer, I think I changed the blend mode to multiply. Yeah, I did. There we go. So most of the layers have got their blend modes changed to multiply, apart from the bottom one, or the second to bottom one, which was set to darken color. So I'm just going to fast forward it again. What I want to do now is switch on the alpha lock by locking the transparency. So you do that by clicking on the layer, then select lock transparency. That way I can choose another color and then paint over what I've already painted on a layer, and it will, if I use a smaller brush, I can just change areas of the color of that. So it looks like I've taken another color on my brush and just dipped it into that wet paint, and then it blends in. So I'm now going to go over the painting and do that. So I'll pick another layer. There we go. I've gone on layer 6, and then I'll open the window and select lock transparency, and you'll see that I can start adding more colors. So I'm just subtly changing colors just to vary up them washes a little bit, and I'll be going over the whole of the painting, just tweaking colors like that, and adding more shapes and details as I go. Notice I've already tidied up that wheel on the car, so that's looking better now. As you can see, I've got these sort of blocky shapes and I want to soften them up a bit. So there's a lovely watercolor smear brush which I use. I have to turn the transparency lock off to do this. There we go, watercolor smudge brush it is. And I can now go in and just sort of break off those sharp edges and add a little bit of smudging into it. And I think that just takes away from those sharp edges and shapes and gives it a much more painterly effect than having all of these squares all over the place. Notice I've left out the iron railings on the windows, or bars, metal bars on the windows. I didn't want those in. I didn't think they added to the scene. I wanted to keep it really, really simple with just the car and the boat in there. So I'm sort of messing around with a smudge brush, now going on to different layers, and you can see I'm smudging out windows left, right and centre, just going on to the other layers and blending or smudging as I go. I think I was just checking to see if I got the transparency lock on. I clearly hadn't, so that was okay. So I can start smudging something else, I guess. Oh no, we're painting a bit more in. I thought I'd add that door. And as you can I'm still doing the same thing where I whack in a load of colour and use the eraser to lift the colour out again. And that to me gave the nicest, most even way. And I've not used, to be honest, I've not used hardly any of the watercolor brushes available in this app. There's loads. There was a right long list, and I've had to play around with a few because that's typical of me. I sort of find a few brushes that do what I want, and then I'm not bothered about exploring all of the others. If there'd have been some more detail in there, I'd have probably looked for a rigger to use or something like that. But the brushes that were available, I thought they were really nice, and they were doing an excellent job. So I didn't really need to play around with them too much. I'm probably thinking at this point, Steve, you should try a few more brushes to show everybody. So, but I don't. I just pick out that washing in brush again. So I clearly wasn't thinking that. I thought maybe I want to change the blend mode to that to multiply. There we go. I just want to add one last final shadow over the whole of the painting. Not over all of it, sorry, just in the shadow areas. So I've picked a nice warm colour, and as you can see, I'm just going over the edges again, just making the whole thing a little bit darker in places, and just sort of strengthening up those shadows, just to give that painting a little bit more impact. So this really is the sort of final stages. I thought that shadow on the left was a little bit green as well, and that needed warming up, which I've now done. So that's cool. And then I can go in with the eraser again and lift out or cut round. Look, you can see I'm chiseling away at the colour where I don't want it, and that gives me this sort of over painting of layers. And it's typical, you've got to create the layer. You can't do watercolor on one layer. You have to create multiple layers for each wash, because that's what watercolor is. It's a transparent or translucent medium where each layer of paint glows through the subsequent layers, and you have to paint that way. You have to have multiple layers. And I do like to change the blend modes, usually to multiply. I don't usually go to lighten, because lighten watercolors don't, you usually go from your lightest color, which would be the paper, and gradually build up the darks. So you never really lighten unless at the end you mix up a bit of gouache or something to add some sparkly highlights on the painting. But generally, if you're doing a traditional pure watercolor, you're always going from light to dark. So I generally stick to multiply for the blend modes when I'm going in for that watercolor effect. And you know what, I'm really chuffed for this painting. I think that looks absolutely lovely. Really pleased with it. Artstudio Pro has definitely taken it to the next level with their version 3. Really enjoying using it so far. This is a third painting I've done using it, and I've really enjoyed the experience every single time. So what have we got left to do? I guess I just need to sign this, and then that will be finished. So I want to thank everybody staying with me till the end. If there's anything else you want me to try out, any other brushes in this app, stick it a comment down. That would be useful. Always points me in the right direction of what to produce videos on. So that's very helpful. So if you could do that, thank you very much. If you like the video, please consider giving me a big thumbs up. That's much appreciated. Helps me out a lot as well. And also, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, because I have loads of videos like this, and I would love for you to come along and watch them and share them with me. That would be absolutely great. So, having said that, stay safe everybody, stay sane, keep painting, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.